Angela. I'm the youth leader here at Sacramento First Church of the Nazarene, and today we're going to be doing a short lesson about Easter. So the title of this lesson is called Empty is a Good Thing. When you think about Easter, what do you think about? Do you think about the Easter bunny, candy, family get-togethers, maybe cooking a big dinner for everybody, cookies, pastel colors? All of those things are good and cute, but when you think about the true meaning of Easter, those all seem so empty. When it comes to the true meaning of Easter, empty is a good thing. Normally the concept of being empty isn't a good thing, right? Empty, it brings about unneeded stress, an empty refrigerator, an empty coffee cup, empty wallet. So empty equals no good, right? You see, everybody gets together for Easter to celebrate a holiday that to them is empty. But I'm here to tell you that empty is a good thing. When we look at Easter in the proper light, we understand what really happened and what was going on, and why we celebrate Easter, and empty is a good thing. See, when Jesus was murdered and nailed to the cross, they buried him in a tomb, basically like a cave, and they rolled a huge, heavy stone in front of the tomb. And then 3 days later, something unbelievable happened. The tomb was empty. Luke 24, 1-8 tells us this. Very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. They found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance, so they went in, but they didn't find the body of the Lord. As they stood puzzled, 2 men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in robes. The women were terrified and they bowed their faces to the ground. And the men said, "Why are you looking for among the dead for someone who was alive? He is not here. He has risen from the dead. Remember what he told you back in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men and he crucified, that he would rise again on the 3rd day." And then they remembered that he had said this. Empty is proof. Let's back up for a second. Let's look earlier during Jesus' ministry when he said he had to go through this to his disciples. Mark 8:31 tells us, "Then Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things and be rejected by his elders, the leading priests and the teachers of the religious law. He would be killed, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead." This is proof that Jesus is who he says he is. Have you ever heard someone make a bunch of claims but they couldn't back it up? Jesus didn't do that. We just read in Mark that Jesus said he would die, and he said that he would rise again after 3 days, and he backed that up. Now, I can follow somebody who makes a claim as huge as this and then backs it up, right? Number 3, empty is powerful. Jesus had power over his death. Because Jesus died and rose again, because Jesus is who he says he is, Jesus has power of sin's greatest weapon, death. You know, for something to have life, something has to die. Did anybody eat any fruit today? It had to be disconnected from its tree, right? It had to be disconnected from its life source. It had to die to give you life. Jesus is the one who says, "I can give you life. I can make it so that you will never really die. That even life after this earth is done, you will live with me forever because that's how much I love you." The empty tomb shows us that Jesus had power over death. He looked death straight in the eye, and he took death's sting, and he overcame it. How amazing is that? Number 4, empty is permanent. You know, plenty of people visit Jerusalem every year. People walk down the same roads that Jesus may have walked down. In fact, my own grandparents did this when they were still alive. One of the places that people love to visit is where historians believe that Jesus was buried. And guess what? To this day, the tomb is empty. Romans 6:9 tells us, "We are sure of this because Christ was raised from the dead, and he will never die again. Death no longer has power over him." Jesus was not in the tomb 3 days after he died, and he isn't in the tomb today, and he never will be. Jesus is God and is alive forever. His body was not stolen. It wasn't in the wrong tomb. This wasn't a magic trick. So when we look at the true meaning of Easter and everything that Jesus did for us on the cross, empty is a good thing. Empty means Jesus is who he says he is. Empty means Jesus has power over death, and empty is permanent. Jesus is permanently alive, and death will never overcome him again. When we decide to follow him instead of following our own selfish desires, we too can really begin to live. Happy Easter.